Let's begin with a structural overview. Welcome to another lecture. Today we consider Jared Verse, a contemporary exemplar of the edge defender archetype in American football. We observe a career that traverses the FCS at Albany, ascends through Florida State in the ACC, and quickly establishes NFL relevance with the Los Angeles Rams before a headline trade to the Cleveland Browns. It is a trajectory as efficient as a well-prepared endgame in chess.
Hello everyone. I'm Priyanka, and I'm excited to learn how someone moves from being under-recruited to, being traded straight up for Myles Garrett. That seems like a big statement about value.
To frame our discussion, Jared Verse is a defensive end. In simpler terms, is the outside anchor of the defensive line, charged with rushing the passer and setting the edge against the run. Think of him as the chess piece on the flank that both pressures the king and denies the opponent the file. And strategically, he constrains time and space. It's important to understand a few terms. A sack is tackling the quarterback behind the line during a pass. A tackle for loss removes offensive yardage on any down, and a strip sack includes a forced fumble. Verse accumulated these with regularity. At Florida State, he was a two-time All-American and two-time first-team All-ACC. And in the NFL, he was the 2024 Defensive Rookie of the Year and a Pro Bowler in 2024 and 2025.
Maybe a simple question. When we say edge defender, do we mainly mean sacks, or is there a broader profile we should notice? Like, how do tackles for loss and forced fumbles fit into judging someone like Verse?
Fundamentally, sacks are the conspicuous currency. But the market is actually multi-factor. Tackles for loss measure backfield penetration on run and screen actions. Pressures compress timing even without a sack. And forced fumbles change possessions. It's crucial to understand that Verse's September 2024 Defensive Rookie of the Month came with only one sack, yet he had 19 tackles and 5 tackles for loss, indicating comprehensive disruption. For the 2024 regular season, he produced 66 tackles, 4.5 sacks, and 11 tackles for loss. And that portfolio, coupled with clutch moments, underwrote his Rookie of the Year recognition.
Moving on. Why does his career matter right now? Is it because he shows that the route from smaller programs can still lead to the absolute top of a league?
Clearly. The path from the FCS at Albany to national prominence at Florida State and then immediate NFL impact challenges a persistent misunderstanding. Namely that elite traits cannot hide outside the Power Five. In this context, Verse demonstrates that when burst, leverage, and finishing ability are genuine, they scale with competition, and the signal is robust to the change in environment. Speaking of signal, 2 striking facts. First, in the 2024 wildcard round, he scored a 57-yard fumble return touchdown. Defensive ends seldom cover that kind of ground in postseason open field, which tells us about his track-informed speed. Second, he was the only Rams player voted to the Pro Bowl for the 2024 season, and he did so as a rookie. That is not routine, and indicates league-wide acknowledgement of value.
Building on that, 2 timeline anchors help me. In 2024, he was drafted 19th overall by the Los Angeles Rams, and then won NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year. In June 2026, he was traded to the Cleveland Browns for Myles Garrett, with the Rams also sending future picks. That feels like a rare, almost physics-style exchange of equal and opposite edge forces.
Indeed. Star-for-star exchanges at a premium position plus draft capital are uncommon. It signals how both franchises valued edge pressure as a cornerstone variable in modern defense, and we might call it a declaration about the elasticity of pass rush relative to roster windows. Before we get to the complexities, a brief personal note. I admire athletes who prove, step by step, that performance scales. From Albany to Tallahassee to Los Angeles and now Cleveland, he passed successive examinations under stricter proctors, as it were the comprehensive exam of football. This, to some extent, is the same iterative validation we look for in research. This logically leads us to three big questions. First, historically, how did the transfer from Albany to Florida State shape his trajectory? Second, counterfactually, what if the 2026 trade had not occurred? Third, prospectively, what challenges define maintaining top performance for players like Verse in the NFL?
I've been wondering about this. What exactly did the Albany to Florida State move do? And, if I may add, what role did his family play in that transition, since we read about his parents being quite involved?
Let's transition to another aspect. The data are persuasive. At Albany, in the pandemic-shifted 2020 season played in early 2021, he produced 22 tackles, 10 tackles for loss, and 4 sacks in only 4 games, earning Defensive Rookie of the Year in the CAA and second-team All-CAA, a concentrated signal. In 2021, he scaled that over 11 games to 11.5 tackles for loss and 9.5 sacks, suggesting a trait-based ceiling rather than a schedule artifact. The transfer to Florida State was the stress test. In 2022, he recorded 17 tackles for loss and 9 sacks. And in 2023, he repeated 9 sacks with 12.5 tackles for loss. Across both seasons, he was an All-American, first-team All-ACC, and voted Team Defensive MVP twice. We can infer that the move maximized visibility and verified translation against ACC lines, which in turn made a first-round valuation rational. As for family, it is worth noting that his father, Eric, served in the Marine Corps and works as an engineer. So discipline plus systems thinking are apparent in Verse's preparation. His mother, Janian, who works in marketing, helped organize the recruiting process that culminated in Florida State, and this administrative clarity reduced friction at the moment when the decision was consequential. In simpler terms, the infrastructure at home supported the escalation in competition.
That makes me think about how early signals matter. Does the Rookie of the Month in September 2024, with only 1 sack, show that coaches valued his run defense and disruption more broadly, not just counting sacks?
Precisely. The award profile implied the league read his tape the way we might grade a proof, not by its length, but by its logical force. Add in his multi-sport background. He played basketball and ran track in high school, including a state champion 4x400-meter relay. And that blend manifests in pursuit angles and the stamina to string high-energy rushes. It also explains how he could convert a 57-yard postseason return and later a 76-yard special teams touchdown on a blocked field goal in Week 17 of 2025.
To shift gears a bit, suppose the 2026 trade never happened. What if the Rams kept Verse and their future picks, and the Browns kept Myles Garrett? How different do you think the defensive identities would be?
Theoretically, the Rams would have maintained a cost-controlled elite edge on an upward curve and retained draft capital. This aids multi-year roster building, particularly where affordable premium play at defensive end lets resources flow to offensive line or secondary. The Browns, retaining Garrett, would preserve a known top-of-market pass rusher whose presence shapes protections and unlocks multiplicative effects for teammates. Without the trade, we likely see continuity effects, familiar schemes, steady pressure packages, and less immediate re-optimization. With the actual trade, however, Cleveland acquires Verse plus the time horizon implied by his age, while the Rams obtain Garrett's established apex performance at the cost of future picks. In portfolio terms, Los Angeles exchanged variance for present expected value, while Cleveland accepted near-term variance for long-term optionality. Naturally, outcomes still hinge on health, complementary rushers, and coverage structure, so we resist pretending to compute a single deterministic answer.
I'm curious about trades in general. When fans say a team won or lost a trade, are they missing the time dimension? Front offices are mapping windows, not just names.
In this context, yes. Trades are intertemporal choices. They expose beliefs about development curves and injury risk, and they reveal discount rates for future picks. Star-for-star deals at edge are rare because both the floor and ceiling matter to championship probabilities. The 2026 swap underscores that pass rush is treated as a franchise asset class, not a luxury good.
The next thing we should talk about is durability. What challenges do players like Verse face in maintaining peak performance season after season? Physically and mentally, what sustains that level?
We observe three interlocking constraints. First, load management. Edge defenders accumulate micro-trauma from repeated contacts and torque, so periodization, sleep, and nutrition are not optional. They are part of the playbook. Second, technical evolution. Offensive lines adapt, protections slide, chips arrive. So continued study of hand usage, counters, and rush lanes is necessary to keep pressure rates stable. Third, cognitive bandwidth. Film study must be translated into pre-snap triggers without eroding reaction time. And here discipline helps. Verse's profile already includes special teams effort, such as his blocked field goal return in 2025. That versatility is additive, but also implies careful recovery planning. Long-term sustainability requires continuous research in biomechanics, practice dosage, and return-to-play thresholds. And this is ripe for collaboration between teams and academic labs.
Maybe it's just me, but the clutch moments feel psychologically taxing. Like his 2024 Week 13 strip sack on 4th and 3 to seal the game, or the playoff scoop and score. It makes me wonder how much his family's emphasis on discipline contributes to performing under pressure.
Arguably quite a bit. A Marine Corps household often encodes routines for preparation. Consistency reduces uncertainty, which reduces anxiety. And on the field, this appears as clean get-offs and finishes in decisive moments. Coupled with his mother's organized approach to recruiting and communication, we see a player whose off-field systems support on-field execution, the quiet scaffolding behind the highlight. To summarize, a defensive end like Jared Verse is a structural element of defense. He compresses the quarterback's time and seals the perimeter. We examined how the transfer to Florida State validated and amplified his traits, considered how the 2026 non-trade counterfactual would reshape team timelines, and outlined the physical and cognitive demands of sustaining elite play. For further study, we recommend examining how trades at premium positions shift resource allocation and playoff odds over rolling 3-year windows.
So, I guess that kind of sums it up. Thank you for listening, and thank you, Professor. We wish you a good day, and we'll see you next time.